So I'm gonna continue what I was doing yesterday, which is try to do this animation with price. After I ended the stream, I tried to get information from the addresses that I got on these data frames, and apparently you can't have two different processes accessing the library. And it's not a problem with the provider, I think it's a problem with the Web3 thing. And I'm not sure if there's a way to bypass that, but I didn't look into it. And because I think it's just easier, I'm probably gonna stop at around 4 million blocks. I'm close to that right now. I'm at 3,500,000, something like that. Around that. And once I reach 4 million, I think I'm gonna stop getting the blocks, and then I'm gonna do the addresses thing. But I think for now, what I'm gonna do is I have a list of a bunch of different DEXs on a bunch of different protocols. Let me see if and yeah, and yeah, each protocol is different, even for the same DEXs, because you can have chain ID and it's a different kind of pairing, because each protocol has its own tokens, and the way that it works, you can't, unless you're using some kind of other protocol that allows exchanges between different protocols, you can't exchange an ERC20 token, for example, which is an Ethereum token, for another token that exists on the Binance Smart Chain, for example, which has BEP token. So each DEX has its own information based on the protocol. And the ones that exist in multiple protocols, you have different information depending on the chain ID that you supply. And that's the reason why I separated here. I'm gonna do for a bunch of them, not sure how much, but these are the ones that are separated, which is quite a lot already. For Avalanche, then I have these ones, then for Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum, and I'm gonna put all these scripts here that I use to extract the data from these DEXs, and I'm gonna save the data here. And I wasn't sure about which kind of tool to use to store the data, and because I'm not sure what is the best one to deal with live data in stream and to build a website eventually. I think it's probably SQL or something like that, especially for large amounts of data. Which was one thing that I just realized that I didn't think about before, which is pandas is probably not very good for dealing with large amounts of data or for dealing with streams of data, and that's probably why people don't use it that often. They use it other stuffs for building websites and things like that. But for now, I think I decided to do with pandas data frames anyway, because I'm just more used to it, and to figure out the SQL stuff is gonna take a lot of time. Because the problem is I have to figure out how to connect SQL with the Python things. And SQL is a different language you have to use in order to query the data. And then I would have to figure out how to run scripts with that to loop through the data and do stuff with that in the same way that I do with pandas. And I think it's much more complicated. If I'm not mistaken, I think that there is a library in Flask called SQL Alchemy that allows you to do the connection there. So maybe it's worth checking that out. I'm still not really sure about it because depending on which way that I do first, it's gonna be really hard to change later. The more DEXs I do. So that's the thing. So I think I'm just gonna look for... Maybe I'm gonna watch a video about that. And that's probably
Hello everybody and welcome back to
if I think it's easy enough, then I'm gonna probably do that.
Hello everybody and welcome back to
Well, I'm
another
not
Flask
hearing
tutorial. So
anything.
in this video
Okay.
what we're going to be doing is talking about databases and how we can actually save user specific information. Now I know we haven't gone into user authentication yet and talked about password hashing and all of that, and we're not going to do that in this specific tutorial, probably the next one either, but if you guys do want to learn how to do that, let me know and maybe I'll make a video on that later. But right now what we're going to do is just work on saving information in a database, understand how that works, creating some database models. This will probably take 2 videos, maybe 3 depending on how much we end up doing. So if I don't get to everything in this video, don't worry, it's coming in the next one. That one should be out soon. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So what I want to actually do
I
is
guess you can do that with Django as well, but then I have to change the framework that I'm gonna use, and Django is a lot more complicated. I don't think it makes sense based on the thing that I want to do. Which is not I don't want to spend a lot of time building the site part. I'm much more interested in the data analysis and the physics instead of building the website should look good.
make it so that when a user logs in, they're brought to a page that's almost kind of like a profile page, like a very simple profile page where they can modify some information about themselves. Now to keep things simple, we're just gonna make that information.
I'm not sure why it's stopping to play.
When they go there, they can change their email.
What's going on? Oh, there's this weird thing that happens. Oh, now it's normal, but before the icons weren't working. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's something with the operational system, but I'm not sure what's going on here. Voice, maybe it's this thing. It looks like there's something changing the audio all the time. What if I take the other one off? Might be solution. Has to do with OBS probably, because before I started streaming, it was working fine. Let me close this again, test again.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another Flask tutorial. So in this video what we're gonna be doing is talking
Hopefully
about
it
databases
works
and how
now.
we can actually save user specific information. Email if email. Now the reason I'm doing this is because we're bootstrap class and I've just put my blog content in there so it gets off the left wall of our website, just a little method we reach this page with if it was a post or if it was and display that. Email none, just make sure we on the post request by changing this import statement because I just realized this is wrong. What our import really should be, and I wasn't even close, is flask underscore SQL alchemy. So from flask SQL alchemy underscore database underscore URI, notice that's not an L, that's an I, equals SQLite, and then users.SQLite3. Now this right here is actually going to be the name of the table that you're going to be referencing, which we'll talk about in a second. But for now, we're going to leave this as users because that's what we're going to use, and then again, .SQLite3. So make sure you have that. I'm going to copy in
The
one
other
more.
problem of using SQL is that I then usually think about how I'm gonna put the data in the SQL database instead of using pandas, which is a lot easier to write the data from API request into the. And I don't think I'm gonna use all these things here in this file, so maybe I should just take this off. Yeah, because I'm gonna be doing requests and not interacting with Web3 probably. No, maybe actually it's better to just leave this stuff here. Because maybe if the DEX doesn't have an API, then I'm gonna have to use the smart contracts to get the data.
More thing here. This is optional, but this is just going to remove a warning that we get sometimes. So SQL alchemy underscore
But
trap.
that's gonna be a problem because then I'm gonna have to stop the. So I think I'm gonna do the DEXs that have APIs first, and then I'll worry about the rest of them. PancakeSwap, I got the data ready for the other project, but they don't have an API. It's kind of hard to do when they don't have it, because then you gotta find some way to get all the contract addresses and then the contract ABIs and put them on a file, and then use that to extract the information directly from the smart contract. It's a lot more annoying to do.
Modifications equals false. What this is going to do is make it so we're not tracking all the modifications to the database. I believe that's correct. And this just pops up and tells you, add this if you don't want a warning. So I figured we'll add it now so we don't see that popping up. Okay, so now that we've done that, we've actually set up the kind of database configuration, and now it's time to create what we call a model, which we're going to store information in. So the reason why I'm showing you guys this SQL alchemy is because it makes it way easier to save information, because we can write all our database stuff in Python code rather than writing SQL queries. So some of you may be familiar with SQL, maybe you've used SQLite 3 before. This is going to be a little bit different syntax, but you should hopefully be able to understand it. So any kind of object that we want to represent, or any piece of information, can be stored in rows and columns in our database. Now the columns are going to represent pieces of information, and rows are going to represent individual items. Now in our case, we want to store users, and our users are going to have, in this case, just a name and an email, and that's all we want to store. So what I'm going to do is actually define a class which is going to represent this user object in our database, and it's going to be called users. Now what I'm going to do in here, I think I'm going to actually look at this because I forget what it is say db.model as the inheritance, which means this is actually going to be a database model, which means it has a few methods and things that are inherited from it. Now what we actually do to define the properties that we're going to save is write them as class attributes. Now this is pretty straightforward. You can pretty much copy kind of the lines I'm doing and tweak their names if you want to store more or different information. But the first thing I'm going to do is say name, actually sorry, not name, underscore ID equals,
hey Vivek, sorry,
dot column, which again is representing the type of information, and then here we're going to put what this is going to be. So we're going to say db dot integer like this, which is going to be the type of information. We're going to put the name actually before that, which is going to be ID, and then what we're going to do is say primary underscore key equals true. Now, what I've done here, and this is a little bit confusing, so I'm going to walk you through it in case you don't know what SQL is or how this works, is every single object that we have in our database needs to have a unique identification. Now, that identification could be a string, it could be a Boolean, so we only have 2 values, it could be an integer, it could be whatever it wants, but it needs to be unique. So what I'm doing here is saying that each object in our model is going to have an ID. This is going to be an integer ID, and a primary key equals true, which means that this is the way that we're going to reference all these objects, and all of these, every single one of these keys needs to be unique in our database or in our table. So in this users table is what we call it. Every single row has to have a different ID, and that's so that we can like tell the difference between two different objects. Because if we don't have that, then technically we can. So I'm just going to say how to do this if I don't define information for each user. Okay, so now we're going to define an init method, and this ID will actually be automatically created for us if we don't do that because it's a primary key. And now what I'm going to say is just self.name equals name, and self.email equals email. Okay, so I've tried to explain this model. Hopefully this makes sense. Again, you guys can always look at the documentation and read through all this if there's anything that I skim through. I don't go into enough detail about. Okay, so now that we've done this, what I'm going to do at the bottom of my program is add something that we need.
The other parts,
create all.
probably on another video it talks about, which is not only creating the data. He talked about creating the database, but not how to get the data from the API into the database, and then eventually use that data on the front end. There are also another options that I saw, but it seems like those options, it doesn't make sense, I think, for me to use, because they are a lot more complicated, because I'm gonna have to spend a bunch of time studying them. Maybe it's worth it because everyone uses them, but the one that I was looking into is called Spark, I think. And I saw that this same framework on another site that was the Turing complete jobs thing. So maybe that one is worth spending time studying, but
Hi everyone. So in today's tutorial, we're going to continue our work on our Flask web application, more specifically our vaccine passport system from what we're going to use in order to model. Go ahead and copy this code right
I'm
here.
just gonna go skipping because I know he's probably gonna talk about
something like this.
a bunch of stuff that I already know.
DB. And this just means, in which we use in our views file, is that we're going to create a models file right here to hold all of our database related code. Now, we're going to, at some point, we're going to change the names of some of these files to match what's called the model view controller model, which I'll go into in a future video. But for today, we're just going to call this models, and you just need to know this is where all of our database related code is going to be, and that's going to be in the app folder, just like the views file. So now that we've kind of done most of the important work, actually maybe this should just go right down here. Let's see if there's any other errors here we need to fix. Looks like I spelled SQL alchemy wrong. For now, it looks like we're good to go. So let's go to our models file and start writing some database code. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this code. I'm just going to write it all out, just go line by line. You don't need to follow me for every line. You can also look at the code that's included in this video, but I go line by line just to kind of explain what I'm doing and just so there aren't any questions. We're basically going to store 3 types of data. Doctor data. So this means that we're going to name the doctor, and that's going to be pretty much the same thing, except we're going to change the size of the number to identify. Interesting. We have a function called 28-bit.
So as far as I understand, that's apparently how it works. You put the data, you just put the object, then select column and specify the type. And then you can put other attributes as well. And then you create a class for each one. I've seen this before as well on a course that I was doing to integrate React with Django. And that seems to be the standard. And then probably you get the data from an API, pass through these classes or models, pass the data into the databases, and then you use the same databases and creating other models in order to extract the data from those databases. And then with that data, you create another API request, but then from your side to the front end. I think that's how it works. And the question is it worth it to do that for this project here? Because I'm not really sure how long I want to spend doing this side of things. I think the analysis is more important, and I don't want to spend a bunch of time figuring out the structure and the front end of things. Because I'm not really, that's the thing, I'm not really sure if it's going to be useful or not now. That's the problem. Or how much time I'm gonna want to spend doing this. I think I'm gonna end up using the data frames, pandas data frames anyway.
Numeric character that is have returned. And the way we're going to do that, db.integer, db.foreign key, and then doctor.id. It's going to be volume, a Pfizer with this, and add the time in. Oh, this is what we got, right? db.integer, and then, all right, so we're going to, all right, and just return a method our form then. Let's just try that again. Let's go ahead and say x 542 functionality. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something similar. We're going to do functionality. From this form from right here. We're going to say form password, and we're going to redirect to, actually we're just going to create another route right here, which is a copy of what we created before. And this is where we would show our list of patients, which you'd only be able to see if you had logged in. So we'll say methods. And these methods are kind of the format or the way of submitting information into a form. So basically what would happen is if you submit using a post method from this form, then you can't see the data in the URL up here when you submit it, but if you use get, you can see the data. So post is actually better for hiding your data. So here's how this is going to work. We have this if statement right here. Let me just go back right here and then tab that. And then, so if this is true, we're just going to redirect the user to this route right here. So we're going to say, you should have a function right here. We'll call it patients. So we're going to do redirect URL for, and then patients. And if that doesn't work, we're just going to return error. Now, this is just like really a sort of slapdash solution. We're going to make this a lot more elegant using JavaScript and using try except statements later on. But right now, basically, we're going to check the password using our function right here, which converts the password from a password hash. So it converts what's stored in the database from a password hash to a password, which we can compare to what the user entered in right here. And then if that's true, we're going to send them to patients. And the reason we send them here is because this is where we'll show a list of the patients that's corresponding to the doctor. So we're also going to, we need to import from Flask redirect and
the issues that I'm watching on part 3, I didn't catch the...
Should all be. So basically what we did right there is we
problem with watching these tutorials is that there's a bunch of wastes of time there, of just him coding this stuff. I just want the explanation of how it is connected. So maybe I should search in a different way. Yeah, this 1 hour long. Or maybe this one. I like this guy's videos. Very good. So use these connections from Mysql. No, music.
In this video, I'm going to show you how you can save the output from your web scrapers to a
I
database.
think I'll watch this one more. I'm probably gonna use pandas data frame anyway. But I think the methods already understood is you just import the connect library and then you use that to create a class and then specify the columns and then call the class with the data from our request. I think, yeah.
Using Python, we're going to be using SQLite 3, which is in the Python standard library, so you don't need to install anything else, and it's super simple. So let's get straight in. The first thing you want to do is import it. So it's import SQLite 3 with one L. The next thing you want to do is you want to either connect
The only issue is that I still don't understand. Well, I also saw before that there are some libraries to connect pandas data frames with SQL. So maybe that's one way to get the data from the databases using Python. Because the problem is if you have to use SQL to get to manipulate the data, then it kind of sucks. Because all the stuff that I want to do is going to require Python calculations and the methods that I'm used to.
or create a database. So it's the same command. If there's no database exists with the name that you give it, it will create it. If it exists, it will connect to it. So it's CONN for connection is equal to SQLite3 dot connect and then the name of your database. So I'm going to call this one lunch.db for lack of anything more creative. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create a cursor object that lets us interact with the database using SQL commands. So it's this SQL database. So we want to do C is equal to con.cursor. This will let us use the C command to access our database and make changes to it or add things to it. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to just run that. So we've got no output but no errors. If I come over to the Explorer, we can see right here there is a database called lunch.db. Ignore the other stuff in there. That's failed attempts. So the next thing that we want to do is we need to create a table in our database. So that's done with a single command. There's a few different ways you can do it. I'm going to do it in the main script and I'm going to comment it out once we've created it. If you leave it in there and try and create the same table over and over again, you'll get an error. There's a couple of things we need to know about our table before we get going. Is we need to create the columns that we want and the data type that we're going to be putting into those columns. I'm going to stick to a simple 3-column database for now for this example. And when I move on to the actual more working example, you'll see it going through there. So I'm going to create my table with c.execute. C.execute lets us execute commands on our database. We're going to do 3 apostrophes and then we do create table. Now all SQL commands are in capitals and now we need to name our table. So I'm just going to call this one meals and open up another set of brackets. Now this is where we're going to define our columns and our data type. So after off with our apostrophes, an integer. Well, this is just to actually base and we want orange because it's easy of the item on this page. So if I run this, you'll see what the output is. You can see here it's all just printed in a line. We have the date time, which is the date. Do exactly what I did before. We're going to import SQLite 3. Let's close that. And I'm going to do con for connection is equal to SQLite. We can do that in the database, which is really cool. Then I'm going to do store, which was a text field, title, which is also text. Let's move this onto another line so we can see. And then I'm going to, what was the next one? Price, excuse me, was I'm going to do real, which is like a float, which is a decimal point number. And the last one was stock, and that was also text. So we've got date, store, title, price, stock. Date, store, title, price, stock. There we go. So we've got all the information there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to comment out this so it doesn't actually run that. Let's shrink that down. We don't need that for the moment. I'm going to run this, get no errors. So hopefully we've created our table, run it again. Yep, table already exists. So we can comment this line out, but because I'm happy with it like that, I'm actually just going to go ahead and remove it. So what we need to do is we need to take the function that we've written, and at the moment it just prints this information out, but we want to insert it into our database instead. So I'm just going to leave that there now, and I'm going to do c.execute and insert into, and our table was called prices, and then the values, and we've got date store title commit. Now that's going to commit that information into the database. So c.two entries here. More that I did earlier, which basically is the same, but the price is the same product, but it's from 3 different stores. I'm going to just make this a bit smaller again, just so for the example. So we've got 3 different stores where we select the same product. And again, I've got the execute insert values, the same information. I have print c.lastRowID, which is what I was using for testing, which you can do, which is quite handy.
Maybe before I start, I'm gonna search how to maybe work database. Work's not gonna give me what I want. I want to understand how to manipulate the data with Python from the database. There's probably a library for that, so that's what I'm trying to understand what it is. How to manipulate database data Python. Maybe this one. Let's pull the intro.
We're going to be using to interact with our database and do all the stuff we want to do. Cool. So once that's done, what you want to do is actually so that we can actually interact with our data. Is that we no longer need to do SQL.connector when we So your password is just going to be a blank string, unless you've already set it up. So if you've set it up, type in your password in here. If it's your first time installing this XAMPP, you do not need to type in a password because it's blank by default. Cool. So we've literally got all the variables we need to log into our SQL. So what we're going to do first is actually try and connect to our SQL database. So connecting to MySQL. So this is pretty much logging into MySQL. Arguments. So the first argument is the host, which equals to host, which is right here. Second argument is user, and third is password. So we're going to type all of this up. So host equals host, user equals user, and then just means we've connected successfully without any errors. And then we also now and moment how we can actually create the data.
How he manipulates the data.
All saved in this command handler variable right here. So what we're going to do with that is type in command handler dot set exception as e print
Because that's the issue. I want to know how they do calculations with them. Because if you have to get the database as if it is a request and then parse into some other data format to perform calculations, then I think it doesn't make sense. It's better to just use pandas and then calculate directly.
because we can't read SQL. So this is pretty much command line and how you should learn to do stuff instead of if you could practice this, that would be amazing for you. Go ahead and update the rest,
Yeah.
just in case an error happens,
Probably not gonna talk about.
just going with the generic name, we need to print %sign s. So let me explain what that's going to do. It's going to what inserted because we're only inserting one record right here, which is this Ford Focus at 1.8 liter. Ford Focus from before to like a Mustang or something, I don't know. So that it doesn't overwrite. So I'm not sure if that's the Ford, but hey, whatever. Doesn't matter for now. So array has now got two. So that's how you
Best to
do
just use it the same way
results that we
that
get.
you would do it in Python. You just filter the database and then use that as the value that you want to manipulate. But I'm not sure if that's how it works. Because so far, all the tutorials I watched, they use the SQL language and then they don't mix the Python language with. They don't do stuff with the data that they are queuing for.
So the different colors that we have under the Ford table. Maybe we're displaying everything from a that you've learned. Meet new people and just have a look.
Right, so whatever, I'm gonna use the pandas. So what I'm gonna do is research the ones that have APIs and try to get the data. I think I already read the documentation on this one. Not all of it, I think. Probably all of it actually. But I don't remember if I didn't see the API stuff. Or how to get the data. So this is the GitHub. It's the best place to trade a neural network such as Ethereum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche. As DeFi's first multi-chain dynamic market maker, Protocol and Kyber's liquidity hub, KyberSwap is both a decentralized exchange, aggregator, and a liquidity source with capital efficient liquidity pools that earns fees for liquidity providers. Like the static fixed nature of a typical DEX, and other liquidity platforms in the space, KyberSwap is designed to maximize the use of capital by enabling liquidity aggregation for the best. Rates extremely high capital efficiency in reacting to market conditions through optimized returns for liquidity providers. Best rates for traders, optimized trade routes, reduced gas. Okay, so let's see here. I know there's a bunch of information about the mathematics here that I spent some time reading. And then overview, swap, fetching data. Yes, maybe that's the part. Data and prices here. I figure I'm probably gonna have to do multiple different scripts for each one, depending on the data. That's why I did with the folder format like this. I think I'm gonna erase this one and yeah, this one too. Probably, yeah, I'm gonna use requests, so probably import requests. Then response is gonna be requests.get and whatever URL. Fetching token information. For the SDK to perform queries and actions, it needs data in the format it can work with. For example, for a token, it requires the chain ID address and its decimals. The token address should be a manual input to refer to this section for some popular token addresses. That's the problem of these things, is that you have to research the address each time and then use the binary interface. as well, which is just a pain. Needs data in the format you can work with. Our token requires the chain address, chain ID, address, and its decimals. Chain ID depends on the chain which we are on. It's one if we are on mainnet. The SDK can then look up other token related information via fetch token data. Must be checksummed. Yeah, so I'm gonna probably not do this one now because it probably requires the. Oh, maybe not. I was gonna say it requires Web3, but I don't think that's the case. It's just the ID that is necessary. After getting the details for a pair of tokens, you can retrieve pools for the token pair via fetch pair data. And this is with JavaScript or TypeScript. Fetches information about pairs and constructs pairs array from the given two tokens. I think that's for the examples at least are for JavaScript or TypeScript. Not really sure. I guess I can do it with. The problem with doing with JavaScript is then I have to parse the information into JSON and then TypeScript. Yeah. Because of this, right? The problem with doing with JavaScript is then I have to translate it into JSON and then use the JSON file to create a data frame. It's just more stuff that I have to do. Maybe there's a better way here. They don't talk about as well if it only works with JavaScript or TypeScript. So this is just the site. Or maybe at this one I'm probably gonna have to use the Web3 library, so the thing is to get the addresses, you can probably do it programmatically. The way that I did it for Binance Smart Chain for PancakeSwap was to just do it manually. I got address by address and then I put it on the if hash or if transactions. I forgot the name of the site, but the site where you can look it up, the addresses, and then I did it one by one. I got the address and the binary interface, but obviously that's not the best way to do it. So one way you could do it is just get a subscription of the site to use the API for the Block Explorer or for their site. And then you do the request from there to get the addresses of the tokens and put that on a file. But the issue with doing that is that I think that for the free is probably, I didn't look into it, honestly. Maybe I should look at it. But I think it's gonna be for free, and then it's gonna have a limit, and then you're gonna have to pay. And obviously I don't want to do that. So the other way to do it programmatically would be to create my own node. But that's also a problem because then you need more data storage. If you are gonna run a full node, which I think you need to run a full node, to get the information of the addresses. Because you're probably gonna have to do this Ethereum instrumented EVM. And I'm probably gonna do this at some point, but then I'm gonna have to get more memory. That's the problem. And then I don't need a lot of data right now because I'm more concerned or more interested or curious about doing the physics calculations on the information that I get first and doing the animation stuff. And then once I see that maybe I'm getting something or it looks interesting, then I think I can expand on that. So probably this stage where I'm at is not. It's probably better to not concern myself with that and just try to find the DEXs that have the easiest way to extract information. Which I think SushiSwap is the. I didn't look into the others, but SushiSwap seems that like it's very easy. It is very easy actually to get the information from. The other ones I'm not really sure. I think I'm gonna skip this one and go to the next one then. Yeah, this is definitely TypeScript. It's not really well explained as well. Not much better like this. Like, how exactly do you call these methods? I guess you just create an abstraction of a contract and then call the methods from that. And probably how it works. The other idea obviously would be to create a web scraper, but then it is kind of wrong because if they have an API available, it should be using the API. I always forget the name of this site. Etherscan, yeah, this is the one. But I'm pretty sure you have to pay to use their API. And I'm not really sure how it works. Maybe I should search that as well. When it comes to the addresses, because maybe all you need is a couple of token addresses, and then you can use the same address on regardless of which exchange you're using, you're trying to get data from. But I still think you need some. Yeah, you need the contract address and the ABI from the exchange, from the DEX, I think. Yeah, that's the problem. Just like I thought. Yeah, but maybe with the free one I can do it. Because all I want is the token addresses and yeah, what else is necessary? The DEX addresses. I think I'm gonna read the overview. It's written in TypeScript and has a robust task suite. It can perform arbitrary precision arithmetic and supports rounding off to significant digits or fixed decimal places. The principal exports the SDK or entities. Classes that contains initialization and validation checks, necessary data fields, and helper functions. An important part in the SDK is the fractions class, as it helps the SDK to replicate the integer math computation carried out on chain. Hence, all math operations are performed as fraction operations. So let me think about a good way to research what information is necessary to extract data from decentralized exchanges. I think is the best way. But maybe probably not gonna find anything interesting. Because I'm still a little bit confused about if the address of the token matter or is the same address for each one. If it is the same, I can also copy the ones that I have already from the Binance Smart Chain. But then it wouldn't work on the Avalanche. I think it is actually the same address for the tokens, because that's what the exchanges are interacting with. So it maybe just changes from the protocols, I think. So USDT is going to be always the same for Ethereum inside of the Ethereum protocol. So any DEX that is part of the Ethereum network, then it's going to be use the same address for that USDT. But then from that address to the Binance Smart Chain, there's a different contract for USDT, which is I think that's how it works. But I'm not sure how to search for that. Best way to search for. Yeah, but maybe not, because I want to get the reserves as well. So the reserves are going to be different. So I'm going to have to look it up the contracts anyway. I think I'm going to search for specific ones. It's probably going to be easier to find. No, so they do have another API. This documentation for query for Kyber swap docs legacy no longer active. Okay, that's why it doesn't show on the other one, I think. The RESTful API provides a way for users to be able to programmatically interact with the Kyber network contract without in-depth understanding of blockchain smart contracts. Please note that some of these endpoints have certain limitations as follows. Buy rate and sell rate endpoints are restricted to ETH token queries only. While traded data endpoints. So that's the link there. I should probably spend some time though trying to understand this because it is important. Trying to understand what contracts are necessary. I just need to think more about how to search that. I'm not gonna do Kyber now because probably I wanna do it in Python and I'm gonna have to use it. Choose the Web3 Python library because I'm probably gonna access this through the instead of using TypeScript, access this through the smart contracts. So I guess a good idea actually is look at the GitHub and then look at the contracts and look at which where the functions should get the reserves. That's probably the better way to search for this. And then I can spend some time thinking about what addresses are necessary. So it's written, oh, this one is written in JavaScript. It's probably not the one that I want. Maybe if I search for the documentation on specific pages. Oh, I didn't look at this one as well. You just swap tokens easily at the best rates, installation, npm. Yeah. CyberSwap DEX Aggregator API helps you query which exchanges offers best rates for certain source amounts. So this looks like it is a REST API. Network can be replaced with Ethereum, BSS, Polygon. So it takes token in, token out. ERC20 token contract address just so. Yeah, so you do need the contract. Amounting. And this is not for Kyber swap, you just find the best ones for each exchange. So not necessarily what I want. Ah, interesting. Now contract addresses on all the chains where Kyber swap is deployed. So factory router, I think is the factory migrator. Should find the reserves? I'm not really sure. The other thing that I want to know, and I don't think, yeah, I did some research, but I couldn't find answers, is how, if it is even possible, how to get the contract address from a GitHub repo. I couldn't find the answer to that because on the case of the Pancake swap, I was looking at the contracts, but then I couldn't find for two of them I could find, which is the router and the factory, but for the other contracts, I knew the functions, but I couldn't find the address, so I couldn't access the calls from the Web3 library. And I think that there is a way to do that. If you're deploying a contract yourself, you just import from GitHub. I think you can do that. On Solidity, you import the repo in your, or the file in your own Solidity file from GitHub directly, and then you use it that way. But then obviously you have to deploy the contract and do more stuff. Is just more, it's not the best solution. So those are the only pulls it has. Maybe this is another thing. I was gonna take this and look here. It's just a bunch of libraries. I think now it starts. No library. Yeah, here, I think. DMM pool is, yeah. So, what does this stand for? But I think this is the contract of the Kyber swap stuff. This part here. The rest are just libraries. This is the factory contract. So reserve data, the reserves here. Also, Kyber also has virtual reserves. And apparently is only true when, yeah, this one is an amplification factor, which is pretty much something that determines how inflated the reserve is going to be in order to adjust the slippage or to diminish the effect of price fluctuations based on order size. So minimum liquidity. A bunch of events. I'm not sure if it is supposed to be on the factory contract, the reserve ratio, or the amount in the reserves of liquidity. Mint. Maybe I should just do next time Control F and then put reserves, probably a lot better. So this is the swap function. Get reserves. Here it is. Turns reserve data to calculate amount to add liquidity. External override. But then you need to pass, oh no, returns. So don't pass any arguments. No, but that's weird. Because how it determines, yeah. How it determines which pair you're getting the reserve from. I think I'll be right back. Yeah, so I think I stopped here. Oh, it turns data to calculate amount in amount. Oh. So maybe the get reserves there is not the thing that I'm looking for. But it has to be this one. And because this is the factory address, it's probably on another address. The information for all the reserves or so here is the creation of the reserves. Makes reserve data, memory data. So this is probably a struct somewhere here, or maybe not. And so the moment that it creates the pool and gets the balances of the both tokens on the this address. I don't know where this reserve data comes from. It's probably up there somewhere. It has to be a struct, I think. Or it should be called like that. I don't think it's something from Ethereum. Definitely not. Also, this get reserve data. I'm gonna copy this to Control F later. There must be a better way to do this than doing things like this, where you need to get the contracts and stuff in the ABIs, especially the ABI, because it feels like it's such a waste of space, let's say, or it doesn't make any sense to do this every time. Like every time you have to do something, you gotta get the address and the ABI. There should be a library for just getting the address. Yeah, I guess the question I have is, how can I find the ABI of an address just with the address? I think that's possible, probably. But I'm not really sure. Without using something like scan. So I can do it just on my own, looking at the chain later. Get reserved data. That's the function. But I'm not sure if that's the function that I should be calling to get the reserves. Oh, so this is probably the factory one, not the other one. Yeah, function create pool. Get pools. Maybe this one. Oh, but then, yeah, not sure. I think I'm just gonna search for what you get list of all reserves. Kyber swap. They're probably not anything. I'm also gonna search for voucher gas contracts ABI just with its address. And I think I'm just gonna move on to another DEX that might be easier to get the information from. Maybe I'm just understanding it incorrectly, and Kyber is just the routing system. Yeah, it might be the case as well, where it doesn't actually have the reserves, it just does the routing between multiple DEXs. I think that might be the case actually. And that's why it has those functions there, get reserves. Get reserve data is not because it has its own reserves. But I think it still would be interesting to get the data from the tokens. And maybe it's possible to get the data from trading volume as well. So I'm not gonna take it off here, because later I might try to do later once I have more data on the Ethereum, the blocks of Ethereum and data on the other exchanges, I might come back to this and try to extract more data from using the smart contracts. Yeah, so I don't think there is an answer here. Yeah, but the problem with this solution is that you're not doing it programmatically. Unless you use the web scraper or the not web scraper, the Selenium or Playwright to automate for you, but then you're still making a bunch of requests through your browser. So I want to know if there's a way to just use the addresses and not have to deal with the ABI stuff. Yeah, why not create a database of all the addresses and all the ABIs, and then just link the address to the ABI and make the request. So I think that it shouldn't be that hard to do that, probably. All I have to do is get the addresses. Yeah, but then, yeah, that's the thing. Because, yeah, maybe the better way to search this is what. Yeah, but I don't think you can get the ABI from the blockchain. That's the problem. Because that data, maybe that's the reason why it doesn't exist. Yeah, maybe actually it is possible. Because if you could automate the process of compiling the contract, if you can just use the address to do the compilation using the IDE, it should be possible to do that programmatically for all the addresses. So maybe I should do that actually. But then I'm probably gonna be deviating my focus too much. Because you just get the list of addresses, figure out how the compiler works, and then loop through the list and compile each one. And then once you have the ABI, you put it like a dictionary or in a data frame. And then you link each address with its own ABI. But then maybe I should search for how smart contracts compilation works. Yeah, but the problem with that is that I'm gonna spend too much time, and I'm gonna be deviating my focus. So, but otherwise, I would probably do that. Maybe we should search for how the remix compiler works. Yeah, so I'm not gonna bother with this. I'm probably gonna move on to the other one. Yeah, it's just gonna be too much. I think Paraswap is a routing system as well. Yeah, I don't think that Kyber Swap has reserves. It's just a routing system. Create another own networks such as if I first multi-chain dynamic market maker and the main protocol in Kyber's liquidity hub. Kyber Swap is both a decentralized exchange, aggregator, and a liquidity source with capital efficient liquidity pools that earns fees for liquidity providers. Also, it does have reserves. Like the static fixed nature of typical MMA DEX and other liquidity platforms in the space, is designed to maximize the use of capital by enabling liquidity aggregation for the best rates, extremely blah blah blah. Best rates for traders, amplified. Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to the other one. Paraswap exchange. I want to find the ones that are the easiest to get the data from first. If there aren't any one that's easy, then I'm gonna go back through the list and figure out. I'm probably gonna yeah, that's the thing. I'm gonna have to sign up to the Etherscan. Then I'm gonna reach my request limit. I'm gonna figure out how to do it programmatically using Etherscan. Reach the request limit, and then once I do that, then I start thinking about the compilation stuff. So I can do it on my own by using. I could also do something with Playwright and Selenium, where I just create a script to open the remix and do the things like as if I was doing manually, but create a script for that and then put all the addresses, compile all the contracts, and get the ABI put on the data frame, and then use that data frame. Aggregates decentralized exchanges other DeFi services in one comprehensive interface to streamline and facilitate users' interactions with decentralized finance on Ethereum EVM compatible chains. This website provides a clear state of Paraswap's capabilities and some guidance on all the services Paraswap can interact with. Okay, quick start. It's middleware streamlining users' interactions with various DeFi services. It gathers liquidity from the main decentralized exchanges together in a convenient interface. So it's just a routing system, I think. Abstracting most of the swap's complexity to make it convenient and accessible for end users. Paraswap can be used directly through the. That's another reason why I think that arbitrage opportunities are not really. It's more something you should do to learn about the blockchain instead of to make money, because there are probably people that figured this out a long time ago, made a lot of money, and then they created these companies, which is pretty much doing the same thing but with other people's money and adding other people's money to it. So pretty much figure out the code to maximize the arbitrage opportunity, and then you create a DEX based on that. I think that's what these people did. These ones, and I think 1inch is like that as well. A couple other ones. But then obviously you can argue that their smart contracts are not good enough, and there are probably better ways to find the arbitrage, and that's probably true. But yeah, you're fighting for the edge there. Not sure if it's worth it. Instead of just creating one application yourself. The only thing you need to use Paraswap is an Ethereum wallet. You're now ready to define. Extract the complexity, swap tokens. So maybe they don't have APIs as well. Yeah, I don't think they have API. Checks the rates on all supported DEXs, implements further optimizations. What is required to use Paraswap? You just need MetaMask. I think I already read this stuff as well before. Yeah, so this is gonna be the same way that works with Kyberswap. Find the GitHub repo, try to find the addresses of the contracts, and then access the data directly from the contracts. I don't think they have liquidity or reserves, but there probably is a way to get information on trades. I guess that's another thing to think about, which is how can you know just by the blockchain nodes where the trades are coming from? So, for example, if they don't display the information on the smart contracts, they don't have any events to keep track of the trades. What you could do is just observe it in the blocks directly, the blockchain directly, and then that way you would be able to get the trades. But then the thing is, how would you know which blocks contain the trades for that specific exchange that you're trying to focus on? And I think the way you would do that is the same way. You just get the addresses and then you create a script to figure out where the addresses, what is the smart contract for that address and how it's connected to the other ones. And then through that you figure out which exchange it is. But I still think it would be a little bit complicated because sometimes just with the smart contracts you wouldn't be able to really know that it is from that exchange unless the contract specifies something related to the exchange, or that you can link that contract to other contracts that give it away, let's say. But then you have to do a lot more data analysis to figure out. Not sure if anyone has done something like this. I think it is what I'm talking about is slightly different than an oracle, because the oracle is the bridge between the normal world, let's say, and the blockchain. But I think what I'm talking about is more figuring out where the transactions are coming from in a more efficient way, or how to track the data inside of the blockchain just by observing the blocks. Connection to the most major decentralized exchanges such as Uniswap, Kyber, Curve, or the 0x network. When you input a trading pair on Paraswap, for instance, if it should die, Paraswap compares the available rates for the pair on exchange. Optimize orders execution. Paraswap does whatever it takes to find the best rate, including splitting your order across several decentralized exchanges. Splitting orders is particularly effective for large transactions, such as the one presented here. For pools. That's also interesting, because you're diminishing the effect on the liquidity of each pool. but you're also spending more fee. So there's a balance there. Multipath streamlined interactions with DeFi. Multipath is Paraswap's secret sauce enabling to consider indirect trading routes, 2+ hops, and seamlessly interact with various decentralized services such as lending platforms like Aave or Compound. No stones left unturned. Paraswap pools. I just want to see the data. I don't want to see this. Oh, here it is. So they do have an API. Oh, nice. Okay. I'm gonna create a file here. Apply. Here on the user documentation of Paraswap explaining what it does. Oh, this is the other one. Okay. Paraswap volume stats. The main Paraswap Analytics dashboard provides data on daily, weekly, and monthly volumes, as well as swap tokens and users on all chains Paraswaps available. I also heard about this site as well. Paraswap supported on DeFi Llama. The total value locked in the PSP staking system, as well as the safety. Yeah. But I'm not really sure what this site does, but I've seen it before. I think it's just the list of the protocols. Yeah, it's a site that displays all the protocols of decentralized exchanges. But I don't think you can use it to get the reserves, but maybe you can. Oh, you can have the address here. You can get the address for each one. One thing that I just realized as well is that it might be interesting once I have the Ethereum data, all the blocks, I can make a list of all these addresses, put it on a dictionary, and then filter the data frames based on these addresses to display the data on them of the transactions, the connection of transactions between them. Yeah, because that was a problem yesterday when I was looking at this data. You just have the addresses and don't have the names. So I think it would be interesting to build a list or maybe another data frame, or each address. Yeah, I have to think about that. Probably it's probably better instead of using the site, I just use the Web3 stuff. I just look through the addresses, then use the Web3 stuff to get the information of what is the name of the company, if there is a company. Yeah, but that's the problem. How would I do that? That's the thing. Because I think you would have to do it manually to get the name. Because there is not going to be specified anymore. Just using the Web3 methods, I think. Also, it's not just the decentralized exchanges, it also has the list with the oracles and other stuff. So it's pretty much all in Solidity. Some Viper. I think Viper is closer to Python, is the Python version, let's say, of smart contracts. It looks like Solidity is declining a little bit. And this is really well made. Let's see how they did this. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can see what library they use from here. It looks like Postgres for the databases. So maybe I should be using that one. tokens might be better to display data. Get rate for a token pair. This endpoint gets the optimal price and price route required to swap from one token to another. And the question is, how does it do that? You're probably not gonna put the GitHub here. So I'm not sure if this is all required. Probably not. Source token address instead token symbol could be used for tokens listed in the tokens endpoint. Can be omitted if token symbol is used in source token. Yeah, that's the problem. You still need the addresses. So I'm starting to think it will be probably worth it and better if I change my focus from getting the data from these exchanges to doing the thing that I was talking about before of figuring out how to use the addresses to get the information, or how to programmatically get the tokens without using the API. Yeah, I need to understand how to get the names, just like Etherscan seems to do. And this is probably only for, yeah, there are other versions of this for other protocols. But I want to know, I don't think it displays the name on Etherscan either. That's the connection that I'm trying to think of on how to do. How to connect the address with the company name, let's say, or the token name, programmatically without having to put them manually on all of them in a file. Oh, I think you can do that with Web3 probably. If I create something to compile the contract and get the ABI, then I can use the information to do it programmatically with Web3. Yeah, but then I would need to have I would need to know the functions that I'm trying to get out of the contract. That's the problem. And maybe I can use CoinMarketCap API as well. I think I already used their API one time. point. Yeah, but I don't think I can get the addresses from this. That's the problem. Just prices. Yeah, they do have the name here. I wonder how they do that. How is it possible to link the addresses with the name? I don't think they do it manually because just too many wouldn't make sense. They are using, yeah, so they're using a library like Web3 but for another language for GIF, which is Go Ethereum, I think. Guess the domain service thing that I did from build space is kind of like about the same thing, where but it's kind of hard to think about the other way around, because for that one was creating something that allows people to get the create a domain, so create an address that points to a domain. But if you have the address, how do you get the domain? Or how do you get where it's pointing to? Oh, this still doesn't solve the issue. I don't think I can use this to get the addresses, so just gonna close this one. Then I have to think about this address thing here. These endpoints get the optimal price and price route required to swap from one token to another. So you need the address for the source token, destination token. So I think what I have to focus on, because probably all of them, if not a bunch of them, are gonna require this stuff, is how to create a file with all the tokens in all networks. That's the thing. I think I'm gonna do the file only with the addresses, and then from the addresses I think about, in case I need it, I think about how I'm gonna extract the ABI, and then eventually combine the two. And then once I have that, then I can do this stuff because I could just use the file and loop through the whole file on each exchange or each router or whatever you want to call it to extract the information about the tokens. Obviously doing manually is not good because then I have to do it one by one. Yeah, same thing here. Maybe this one doesn't require, so I can at least get this one. Hmm. Yeah, so I assume this is a list I probably did manually. Sure. Yeah, at least I can get this one. For some reason, I can't do Ctrl C, Ctrl V with this thing, which is quite annoying. So I had to type as well on sushi swap. Let's see if it works. I guess I can use the Etherscan API first. Make sure that I spend all the free ones. Because maybe the free requests are enough to get all the information that I need. So I don't have to spend time on this. Then once I have the file, I can focus on getting the other information from the DEXs. That might be better actually. Oh, I can't do like this. I have to do JSON.loads maybe. I'm confusing this one with JavaScript. Let me try JSON. JSON. I'm not sure what's the difference between loads and load, but I know that there is a difference. I'll try with loads first. Maybe we should research that. Takes a file object and returns the JSON object. It is used to read JSON encoded data from a file and convert it into a Python dictionary. Can be used to parse a valid JSON string and convert it into a Python dictionary. It is mainly used for deserializing native string byte. So probably JSON.loads is the one that you use for API calls. And JSON.load is when you're loading a file. That's the difference. And here I can obviously get the addresses from this call and use those addresses to make the other requests, but it's not the best solution because both it doesn't get all of them and because it's not going to be maintained. So I'm not receiving a string. Let me just try to print the thing. And so I am supposed to use JSON.loads there. So why isn't it working? Maybe it's a problem with the endpoint, the URL. Yeah, it is returning. Oh, so the response is 504, I think. So 500 is probably error on the server. Get await timeout. Or it might be because I'm doing the other stuff. I'm requesting information from Alchemy on the other ID. Might be because of that as well. But that one doesn't make a lot of sense to me because when I did with Sushi Swap, I was also running this other stuff in the background. So it probably is a problem with the server side and not my stuff. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna take a break now and I'm gonna think about this thing here. I think it's gonna be better to maybe I should go through the other exchanges just to see if there is one that is easy to get the information from. I know Sushi Swap is easy. Or maybe maybe before I focus on this, I just go quickly through the other ones. I'm just spending too much time on each one because I wanna understand. So I probably should go faster through each one. Just to see if that is the case as well, that most of them are probably gonna require addresses of tokens to get the information or other contracted addresses. Yeah, this is the one that I used. Get pairs. I think this is the one that I use to get information. And it returns the reserves as well. So it's probably the only call that I need to do. Then I need to pass the chain ID. So HTTP API true Sushi Pro. I should figure out the ID on the Pancake swap. I just looked at my MetaMask wallet, but for Avax, I don't think I have MetaMask.
Get scammed into giving them out. All right, so the next thing you're gonna have to do is to add the Avax network to your MetaMask. Now you can do this manually by typing in the RPC code and network URL and all that kind of stuff, but we can just also do it in a much easier way, which is to go to beefy.finance, and then over here you're gonna click Avax, and then it's gonna prompt you to switch to Avax network, but just hit approve, switch.
Oh, that was fast.
Then it's gonna prompt you to switch to Avax network, but
Nice. Okay, so chain ID 43,114. So let me see if this works. Oh, 404. Why though? Maybe the ID is incorrect. Oh, here, chain ID. So seems should be correct. And this is probably gonna give me an error because I'm getting the 404 response, but just in case. Maybe it's not supported by SushiSwap. Oh, that's the thing. So why did I put it there? That's weird. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this one from here. Oh, this file still exists. Oh, I deleted the wrong one. Okay. Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong file. That's the thing. Yeah, but I guess I can delete this. 'Cause I'm not gonna use the... Maybe I should save the chain ID somewhere. I'm gonna put it here. Yeah, I was doing it in the wrong file, so I deleted the correct one. Okay, next one, Trader Joe. I don't think it's this. Yeah, it's probably this one. Docs. Okay, API. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have much stuff here. Oh, great. This is also not working, apparently. Yeah, I don't think they have anything to extract the information from. So I think I'm gonna take a break. When I come back, I'm probably gonna go quickly through all of this as well to see if there's any other. I know the sushi swap is gonna be possible because I already did for the Binance Smart Chain, but I'll look into the other ones to see if there is any other one that is gonna be easy to extract data. And then after I go through all of them and see which ones are the easiest to get the data from them, then I'm gonna focus on this, which is how to create the files with all the tokens so I can extract the data from the other exchanges that require addresses. And yeah, so see you.